All right, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Looks like everybody is joining in. Give them just some time to jump in on here. It's good to meet you guys. My name is Robert Wegner. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for BW&CO. And we are a full-service grant writing firm that provides three main services. Number one is technical writing and commercialization writing. Number two is Department of Defense business development, as well as other federal customers. And then lastly is grant reporting and accounting services on the back end. We have a significant number, about just over 50 PhDs on staff and in contract in different areas of expertise to help apply for these mechanisms. We have a Department of Defense business development team to help secure end users. And then obviously on the accounting side, CPAs on staff and in contract to be able to help with everything necessary once you receive the grant. So today we're going to be discussing the DARPA MTO, the Microsystems Technology Office. We have Dr. Rachel Crawford, who is one of our main program officers, project consultants here at BW&CO, and she's going to be going through this solicitation. So just a few ground rules before we jump in. The chat is disabled for the webinar. However, if you go to the bottom of the Zoom taskbar, you'll see a Q&A section in which you can submit questions, and then later on we'll be submitting answers in response to the questions at the end. So if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A for us to review. If you have any questions about DARPA, MTO, or any other questions around these grants or solicitations, feel free to put it in there and we'll address it at the very end. If you are interested in pursuing this opportunity, obviously a lot of information is going to be shared here about how to do that. If you're looking for any sort of assistance, BW&CO has the availability to help with the application, especially with the initial abstract or pre-application in the first stages of the solicitation. So feel free to reach out. I'll be the person to kind of walk you through what our process will be, do a quick screening and due diligence to ensure that it's a good fit for the opportunity. All of that's at no cost before we fully engage in the solicitation. So with that said, again, if you have questions, put it in the Q&A. Chat is disabled for the conversation, and slide deck and the call recording will be sent out to the attendee list after the call. So everybody will get a copy afterwards, and it will also be publicly available on YouTube for your viewing. So again, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Rachel Crawford.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert, for that introduction. So today I'm going to be talking about the DARPA MTO solicitation. And these are really exciting opportunities for small businesses or other entities to partner with the US government, the US military, to kind of showcase your work and see how it integrates into the US security and military system. So this specific solicitation does have a topical preference. So this is specifically looking at research that deals with microelectronics, photonic circuits, quantum circuits, biological circuits, and then also advanced manufacturing ecosystems. We'll talk a little bit more about those research topics in just a little bit, but that's kind of an overview of what they're looking for as far as the type of research that they want to apply to this. So the abstract deadline for this is January 15th, and then the full proposal deadline is March 2nd. For the abstract, an abstract is not necessary for this submission, but we do highly recommend it, and I'll talk a little bit more about the abstract and why that's recommended in a moment. And then these are reviewed on a rolling basis. For this award, there are going to be multiple, and there's no defined, cost cap as far as the amount of money that you can request to fulfill your goals. But it is important that you focus on realism and are able to justify the expenses that you're asking for, right? There is also another option where if you have a project that is going to cost less than $2 million, you can select the accelerated award option, and they are actually able to issue awards within 30 days of selection notification for those specific types of awards. Okay, so for eligibility, who's eligible for this? So this BAA specifically does not really restrict eligibility. So, there's a lot of different types of entities that can apply to this, whether you're a US business, university, nonprofit, and also federally funded research and development centers. So there might be some foreign limitations. So that's something that you might want to check with a program officer, and we can also help you look at and kind of decipher, or also help you check with a program officer if that's something you're wondering about. For the technology readiness level, or where you should be at as far as the types of companies that would be most likely to win this award, this BAA does not specify a specific technology readiness level. However, it does really want to focus on companies that are able to kind of prove their feasibility and show that the team and the research that they have done are able to be completed. So what that means is probably a technology readiness level of at least a 4, kind of looking at having some data established, maybe near a prototype if a prototype is not developed, or maybe even a 5 where you already have a prototype developed or that you've tested some. If you're a really good fit, so if you feel like your niche really fits well with what this opportunity is looking for, and you have a really good team and are able to prove feasibility, it might be suitable to apply if you're lower than that in the technology readiness level. But that's probably what I would recommend is you probably want to be around a 4 or 5. And if you're lower, it might be okay if you really fit this niche. And that's something, again, that you could talk to a program officer about potentially if you're, concerned about that. So for the 3 main areas of research interest that this opportunity is looking for, there's 3 areas of focus. And the first one is what they're calling scientific disruption, which is essentially looking at new ways to design and employ integrated circuits for microsystems. So they have 3 kind of subpoints under this category. One is photonic circuits, and then quantum circuits, and then bio/organic circuits. So essentially looking at, using for photonic circuits, using of photonic interconnects, enabling new materials and wavelengths, and facilitating new architecture designs. For quantum circuits, they're interested in enabling reduction of QCs to practice, as well as advanced superconducting and building blocks for chip-scale quantum systems. And then for the bioorganic circuits, they're looking at bio-based methods for high-speed, low-power compute and avenues for OCs that are going to exceed the performance of inorganic circuits. So that's kind of specifically what they're looking for under this category. For the next 2 categories, the second one is microsystems manufacturing ecosystem. And for that, they're looking at bringing sustainability to advanced microsystems. So things like non-traditional semiconductor materials, methods to predict fabrication and integration methods with minimal data. And then the third one is going to be dual use by design, which is essentially looking at new technologies and design integration and hardware security that lead to impactful commercialization, while of course supporting security and performance, which is always very important for any sort of military application, right? So those are kind of the 3 main areas of focus, and they do have a list of further examples on, there's the full solicitation as well that you can take a look at. And if you're still unsure of fit, that's something that, we can help you take a look at, and we can also help you reach out to a program officer to see if they think that it's a fit. When it comes to designing your goals and what you're going to be evaluated on as far as who's going to win, there's a few things to keep in mind. So the most important thing is going to be scientific merit and feasibility. So you really want to kind of put your best foot forward as far as showcasing your team, what you've done previously, whether that's scientific research or whether it's commercialization and business ventures. Those things will be really important to highlight to kind of just expand on the likelihood that your team is going to be able to achieve the goals that you've outlined, as well, of course, scientific merit. So if you've done research with your project already, if you have preliminary data that you're able to showcase and show that what you're doing works, that it's exciting, then that's going to be really important for you to focus on. The second thing, of course, is actually the fit to this opportunity and the potential and contribution and relevance to the DARPA mission. So for the DARPA mission, it's always going to come back to contributing to US national security and US technological capabilities. So you'll really want to be sure that the project is able to tie into that and is able to clearly there's a clear pathway for you to take it from where it is now and then integrate it into US national security and technological capabilities. The third thing is going to be cost realism. So when you submit a proposal like this, and there's no funding cap, at least for the non-accelerated award, you really want to be sure that what you're requesting cost-wise has this aspect of realism to it, and you're able to really justify the cost for everything, right? Whether it's for cost for personnel, cost for equipment, cost for any contracting that you're doing, you really want to be sure that you have detailed records of what you think it's going to cost and why in order to receive that award. And that cost aspect is one of the reasons that we really recommend submitting an abstract. So for this specific solicitation, you don't have to submit an abstract. It's not always required, and in this case, it's not. But we really strongly encourage it. For one thing, they save you time. So the abstract cap is 6 pages as far as the length of the proposal. And it's going to go over just kind of summarized the different aspects of the proposal. So you'll talk about technical merits, you'll talk about the team, and you'll also kind of lay out the costs, but in a more general manner, right? And so you'll submit an abstract and you may receive an invitation then to submit further. So when you submit an abstract, usually it takes about a month or so, I would say at the longest usually, to receive some sort of response. And if they invite you to submit further, then you're able to kind of go in to the additional work of a full proposal more confidently, knowing that they're specifically interested in the work that you are doing. So they save you that time because you're able to kind of prepare a more succinct, shorter version of your project before having to delve into the full proposal. When it comes to that full proposal, both of these aspects, so both the abstract and the full proposal, have specific templates that are available from DARPA with instructions and laid out what to put where, what sort of information they're looking for. But for the full proposal, there's much longer documentation. So specifically, the technical component, which is only one of the components, but it's the longest one and the main one. And that's going to be 26 pages of text. And then in addition to that, you'll also have to do a full, more granular budget breakdown as well. So in order to actually submit, there's a couple things that you'll need. One, you'll have to have a SAM registration, which you need for basically all US grants. And that will give you a UEI number, which you'll need to continue on. And then you also will want to register for the DARPA BAA tool account in order to submit that abstract. And again, the key deadlines on that, the abstract deadline is January 15th, and then the proposal deadline is March 2nd. So the ways that we can help you out with that, for an abstract, we can work with you hourly or for a full abstract to kind of help you get your project framed and then get you a abstract that is thorough and exciting, and hopefully we'll get you that invite. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Dr. Rachel. So as she mentioned, the abstract deadline, January 15th, full proposal due March 2nd, early next year. And so, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them there just as we wait for some of these to come in. Just want to remind you that we do provide both fractional and full services in preparing the application. Happy to talk about that in greater detail. I put my meeting link scheduler in the comments or in the chat function if you want to schedule a call to kind of go over the evaluation. Typically what we'll do is you can give us an even shorter version of what your project is, shorter than what an abstract would be. Our team will do a quick assessment, see if it's a good fit for MTO, and then make a recommendation on whether to pursue it or not. So that's at no cost. Happy to do that before any sort of formal engagement with our team. You can do that by scheduling a call with me and starting that process. So we do have 2 questions now. One, the first question is, who can help us understand any additional eligibility steps for foreign entities?
So that's something that you want to probably contact DARPA about. And that's something that if you work with us, we can kind of help you as a go-between them if you're a little bit confused about the steps to, reach out to DARPA themselves. But they do have an email which I can actually provide in a follow-up. They do have an email that you can send questions to and a couple really useful links that I can provide.
Okay, great. And what's the normal, Rachel, what's the normal response time if somebody sends an email to DARPA to ask a clarifying question?
I would say usually within, maybe a 48-hour turnaround. They might have a established turnaround time that they try to aim for on their website. But usually you should expect a pretty fast turnaround, especially if it's a fairly straightforward question. Um,
Okay, great. In kind of expanding on that, how long does it take, this is a question, how long does it take for DARPA to review and to make a decision? I would imagine you mentioned, I think, within about 30 days from when you submit the abstract. But when it comes to the March 2nd proposal, what would estimated timeline be for receiving a notice of award and then receiving the actual funds?
Yeah, so usually as far as notice of award or as far as any sort of feedback, you're usually looking at several, a couple months at least for feedback on a full proposal. And then as far as award, usually with these types of grants, from the time of submission to receiving money, usually you want to plan for nine months to even 12 months as far as between submission time of the full proposal and then actually receiving funds.
Okay, great. For this, one of the other DARPA solicitations that are available are the BTO, the Biological Technology Office. That group has an accelerated award option for awards under 2 million. Do you know if that's applicable for the MTO as well?
Yes, this one also has the accelerated awards option. So yes, if you have a project that is under 2 million, you can choose the accelerated awards path. And there are a couple of special documents for that. So, with the templates that they provide, there's an abstract template, and they also provide the full proposal template. And then if you choose the accelerated award option, there's a couple other or alternative ones that you should use instead. So yes, that is an option with this one as well.
Okay, great. Great. And just to be clear, it's 30 days after notice of award. So they're still going, it's not 30 days after March, but it is once you get the notice of award that you are being funded, it's within 30 days of that time period. The other question here, we've got a few more that are coming in. What is the typical time for providing inputs? Pradeep, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit more in terms of what specific inputs, whether yeah, if you don't mind just expand on that question a little bit and resubmitting it, that would be great. The next one is, can we submit an abstract before we have a SAM registration?
I think no. I think you need your UEI number in order to register for the DARPA BAA tool. So you kind of associate your company and that UEI number with the account. So no, I believe you need a SAM registration for that.
Okay, great. And then will DARPA give feedback on each level of the proposal?
Yes, so they will. You will receive feedback on the abstract. I will say that if they're telling you that they're not interested, you'll probably receive less feedback. So you'll receive less feedback in the abstract phase in general. They won't give you any sort of full breakdown or any kind of summary there. It's usually more of a yes or a no, and there might be a few comments. But then you should receive more feedback on the full proposal.
Okay, great. Well, that is all the questions that I've received here. Thank you guys for submitting those. So just to kind of tell you about what next steps are going to look like. So after this call's completed, we'll get the call recording, the slide deck put together, and then we'll send out an email to all the attendees with the recording, which will be on YouTube, the slide deck, which will be in a PDF format. That we do have a link in our website to a blog article that also has a lot of these details listed here. And then my scheduling link if you guys want to talk about cooperating with BW&CO and submitting an application. So again, we work on the grant writing, both in the technical and commercialization aspects of grant applications, as well as doing business development within groups like Department of Defense, Department of War, as well as other federal customers, and then grant reporting and registrations and administrative accounting support on the back end. So if we can provide any service for this opportunity or others, feel free to reach out, and we'll get this email over to you guys here within the next couple of hours. So thanks so much for joining us, and hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.